Welcome to Food Shrinks.
Hey guys, just wanted to jump right into what I need to talk about today. There's this topic that I think we need to discuss, and I'm curious to know, and so are the listeners, when do we need to go deeper than recovery coaching? And when is it fine to just stick at that level? What are your thoughts on this kind of question?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. Okay, wait. I want to start with one thought. Okay. I think there's two ways to heal. I think there is like to clean out the nervous system and the endocrine system and then like see what's left, meaning like heal the food stuff, get into that rhythm, bring in the skills, blah, 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 and then see what's left that you might need to farm out to other professionals that are not coaches. So would that be trauma therapy? Would that be maybe psychedelics? Would that be traditional therapy? Would that be couples? Like just the offerings being enormous. So that's usually how I think the game goes. I want to say there have been exceptions in my illustrious career where I've seen it only happen the other way, that the only way that somebody can like heal the food is to do that deeper work first. But I would say personally, 90% of the time, okay, I wanted to say one more thing, but like 90% of the time is like clear out the mind, clear out the body, get some skills, get some repetition of the skills, shore up, dam up everything so that it's ready to maybe do the deeper work. And the only thing I'll say, and I'm so curious what you guys think, is like sometimes that just gets rushed and then it's just a total schmo show because everyone's like, I need to go to do the deeper work. Like, I don't know what everybody's rushing to do the deeper work. Like, it's always going to be there. And it's like, give yourself this grace of just like having a little bit of recovery and some like new snow grooves before we're like moving to the next thing. It's so freaking cultural. Next thing, bigger, more. I need healing. Okay, I'm done. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think it is really important for you, if you can, get to a place where you can like remove the psychoactive substance, start to learn some coping skills, connect with a community who's going to be supportive to you. And, then you can start like to notice, okay, there's something else going on here other than maybe just food addiction. Maybe you're feeling stuck, right? That feeling of stuck sometimes is, for me or for a lot of the clients I work with, a signal that maybe we need to implement something else, to just bring something else in. And I think that, that to like trust the intuition that you have when you've been doing all the things, but you just can't figure it out. Sometimes I think that might be a signal that some deeper work could be helpful for you. And
How
I also think there's not a bad time to go to therapy. Like, really, therapy is like a beautiful thing, which only is for you to help to get yourself, like to get to know yourself better.
how are we defining the deeper work though? I'm so curious about that.
Yeah, I think for me, I guess when I read this question, um, for me, the way that it read was more like, how do you know that it's like beyond the scope of the recovery coach in front of you almost
Oh,
too, like
that's an
maybe, and that's my
entirely different
interpretation of
question.
it. That's my interpretation of it, because not all recovery coaches are clinicians like we are in our other
Yeah.
lives, and so for me, it would, as a professional, I would say, when that coach can only do certain work with you because they're not qualified or, yeah, they're not qualified, they don't have the experience, whatever it might be, you do need to seek those other professionals in your life. So,
But also, haven't you guys had this experience? I know I've had, and I'm a huge lover of the 12 steps, but I've had lots and lots of encounters with clients who have help in those rooms where something's happening with the sponsor or the community And it's really clear to me on the outside that the sponsor is uncomfortable with what the person is doing because the sponsor hasn't done the work, right? So
Right.
the other thing I want to say about the recovery coaches, and which I think there are tremendous ones and there's tremendous sponsors out there and whatever, but a lot of times, I mean, I feel like I feel like they should just put this on my gravestone. I say this so often, like, it's actually not about you. It's that it's not that you're too much to handle. It's that the recovery coach can't handle it because they haven't done their own work. They don't get their own, they don't get their own coaching, whatever. So I think that's a really, really important thing
Yes.
to talk about too.
Right. That the helpers can only take you as far as they've gone themselves. And this is true in the therapy
Say that
world.
slower. Say it slower. It's so important.
The helpers can only take you as far as they have gone themselves. So
Word.
even in the world of therapy, we might outgrow our therapist or the modality of therapy or whatever it might be, because that work or that person can only take you so far. So if you're starting to notice, like you guys have been saying, like if you're starting to notice like something's not right, or I keep doing the same thing over and over again that I'm being asked to do or required to do or whatever it might be, and it's not working out, that might be an indication it's time to change, move forward, go deeper, get out, like that it might be a time to take a step back and say, no, wait a minute, what is going to move me closer to where I actually want to be?
Maybe look at that like a positive, like, okay,
Yes.
I've outgrown, instead of like where we go with diet culture, which is like, oh, see, I failed at another thing. It's like, okay, just going to try something new. And that's
Right.
really exciting.
Yeah, it's the level up, right? It's like,
Level
oh,
up.
you've beat the level, you've beat the boss, in the video game or whatever analogy you want to use, but it's like time to level up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so sometimes that does require digging deeper into your stuff. But I'm also a person that, from a very trauma informed perspective, that isn't always necessarily better either. Not that we're trying to sweep things under the rug, but if we're not doing it in the right space with the right people, and by right, I don't mean perfect. I just mean good fit for you, safe for you,
In the
whatever,
moment. In that moment.
in that moment, it can actually keep you stuck. It can
Yeah.
actually potentially make things worse.
Like, say more. It's so important.
Well, because, and I think we're going to talk about this in another episode, but when we are dysregulated, we may start to do things like appease or like dissociate or like go into fight. We will go into those survival spaces. And so then that work can actually more deeply entrench that stuff that we're trying so hard to move away from, because it just keeps, reinforcing.
Well, you're sort of repeating that pattern with your
Yes.
coach, right? Like, I've seen
Yes.
that happen so many. It's actually why I got trained in polyvagal and why I got trained in sensory motor. Those are two
Yes.
trauma modalities. Many years ago, probably 9 years ago, I was just a behaviorist, and I was like trying to do like a behavioral chain with this girl to figure out like what happened with her binging. And I was like pushing and pushing. And then what happened? And then what happened? Pushing, but come on. And she's just like screamed at me. And she's like, I don't know. And I heard her.
That's it. That's
I
the
was
I
like,
don't
oh,
know.
right. I was like, oh, you need trauma therapy. And I said that to her, by the way, listener. I said, oh, you need I can't, we've hit the mark where I can help you. I want you to go get some skills so that you can start to know what's happening at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I think like also when I think about what lets me know that maybe deeper work might be helpful, maybe if I'm noticing compulsive behaviors even beyond food, right? So, I also think of if maybe some self-harm thoughts are starting to come up, any suicidal ideation. I would say if you are finding yourself like really constantly getting stuck in that overwhelming shame, that, self-hatred, those really like rigid core beliefs about yourself. If you are also finding that you are still struggling in all your relationships, sometimes that may be a signal for some deeper work too. Those are some of the things like behavioral wise, I sometimes watch for as well with clients.
Well, just be careful. You know, that episode, I hope you guys all listen to the episode of where Clarissa and I are buying every single thing that exists to try to get better and get smarter. Because I do think, like, you know, at least for me as a food addict and other addict and like a big overall lover of more, as I would say, you know, like, you know, I don't really know what enough is. And I remember when I was first getting abstinent, like that was all I needed to do at the time was just like go to my like meetings and like go to my nutritionist and like go to work and like set like it was a very small but safe and cushy existence that I just did for probably a year and then kind of moved into something else. I mean, I had to heal my alcoholism, another story for others. But like, honestly, I couldn't have put one more thing. I shouldn't have. And I'm glad I didn't say, like, oh, you know what? Like, maybe I should process my father's death. Like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should go, like, look at why I don't have a romantic relationship. Like, I was really graced with thinking that that was enough.
Yeah.
Like, and
I'm,
I want to say, if you're just like cool with the food, like let that play out. Like
yeah.
ride the honeymoon. Like it's
Yeah.
okay to not need or want to do the deeper work, by the
Yeah.
way.
I would agree.
Well,
I've done the same thing in my life too, Molly, where I've, in through my therapy, even I've said like, to my therapist, like, I don't want to go there right now for these specific reasons, and she's been like, yeah, I totally get that. All right, let's stick with where you want to be. And
oh, what
sometimes
is
it's just been a holding pattern, and that's okay too, and now different things have happened in my life, and now I'm circling back to those. It's like I've just kind of kept this running kind of, little checklist in the back, like, oh, these are things that I'm going to have to come back to. And some of those things are starting to come back up now, but I'm also no longer dealing with the things I was dealing with at the time, so like you were saying, more isn't always better. It's not necessarily like who can get there the fastest or who can like lay themselves open the widest, be the most vulnerable, the most open walking moon on the face of the earth. It really is about how can we do this in a way that doesn't continue to self-harm, self-abandon, self-abuse, and leave a path, a wake of victims behind us as we go, because we are unhealed, just doing our best.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to say, like, let us not forget joy and being in life.
Yeah. Isn't that what recovery is for?
I just
Right?
want to remind everybody, recovery is the bridge back to life. And
Yeah.
we can always find more work to do. And there's always going to be vultures that are going to be selling, and non-vultures even, like, who are going to be like Clarissa and I. Clarissa's like, what was the thing? Like, should I get yoga trained and like the
Oh, there was some forest training.
Yes, that's what
I wanted to become a forest therapist.
You know, I hug a tree every day of my life.
Yes. I love nature. We can all heal with nature together.
I hug a tree every day of my life. I do, every single day. But anyway, not the point. But yeah, I mean, I just want to remind you of that too. Like, don't let the deeper work. There's always going to be something else you can dig into. It's like I love what you're saying, Molly. Like, you're like, you know what? I need to like not do this right now. I'm not ready. Everything my body's telling me I'm ready. And like, maybe you would never be ready. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's a real balance here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love go ahead, Clarissa.
No, I was just going to say because I was in like that major car accident in 2005, and it was like, oh, I couldn't remember it. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to work with someone who can like take me through
I know.
it.
I relate to this so hardcore.
This time, and like there's a reason I don't remember it. It is not negatively affecting my life whatsoever. I drive, I'm not scared of driving. There is no need for me to bring something up that is going to make my life harder, and that's okay. I don't need to know.
We are just giving you permission. I know. Remember what we talked about last week or the week before, my ketamine trip? I'm sitting there like listening to my inner child like screaming at me like, oh God, why did I go here? It didn't help. I'm like, okay, girl, I see you.
I love what you said, Molly, about giving permission and being in life. And you, Clarissa, saying like, do we really have to go there if it's not impacting us in our life today? Like, do we have to go create issue where issue doesn't exist? And I think that we tend to get into those patterns. We are very used to looking for problems and then being problem solvers. And
Yes.
the thing is like, it's not, when we give it the value of a problem, then it's a problem. And when we say, you know what, life is what it was, and certainly I don't mean to come across as flippant and like this is so easy
No,
peasy,
we've all done deep
because
work
it's
in
not.
this
Yeah,
triad, you
we
know?
have. I think it's more of like, as I've aged and as I'm watching my children grow, and the longer I'm like actually in my life, living my life each day, like you were saying, it's about finding joy. What are the little things that get me out of bed each day, and what fills my cup? You know, my husband came home last night with a bouquet of flowers for me, and so I've got them sitting where I can see them, where I do my morning ritual, you know, kind of spiritual stuff. The sun is shining. I mean, it's overcast, but it's bright outside. You know, like there are things that bring me joy that I can lean into in those moments. I don't always have to be digging and scraping at the bottom of the barrel of like, what's wrong with me? Because there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. There have been a series of life events that have happened that I have had to learn to overcome in one way or another. And we have survived 100% of the bad things that have happened to us. So, do we always have to dive into those things? When do we give, or better question, are we giving full amount of attention and energy to the things that do fill us up, that do bring us joy, that are working for us?
Great one. I always love like the delineation of like my motive. Like if my motive is that I think I'm gonna be all better at the end of it.
Yeah.
I know
That's
maybe someone's listening, but like yeah, you are Molly. That's never happening. Like I have a big life, which means I'm gonna have a lot of life. You know, that's
Yep.
just it's like the tide always turns. This too shall pass for good, this too shall pass for bad. It's like, so if I'm looking at it as like a curative, like destination, just like a diet, right? Just like a diet. Oh, okay, this will be the thing. Oh my God, run, girl, run, Molly, run. But
Yeah.
if it's in the way of like, oh, there's this block here, I can see that. I can see a repetitive block. Oh, I really can't stop binging at night. And I've tried all the things they've asked me to, and I put the ice on my neck, and I've done the 5 skills. And like, if that's the thing, then like, yeah, go get that treatment, that help, right? So I think it's to thine own self be true, loves. Like, that's just always going to be what we say at Food Shrinks, but got to know ourselves too. So, motive is a good delineation line, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's so helpful too, because again, it's not about like fixing the behavior. It's like finding out about yourself and about why you are doing the behavior. So it leans back to our first episode about not fixing you, but finding you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, Molly, and you guys both just put it so beautifully. It's not, it's like what you hear about, you know, when you think about trauma work, it's not about healing so that you're never traumatized again. Like that, there's no guarantee. It's more, it's about healing and finding your way of coping and like making sense of things, new coping skills so that you can like live in joy, so that you can experience like those big other things, not that constant.
Yeah, we call it in trauma, we call it expanding your window of tolerance. That's what trauma
Yeah.
work is, right? So that you have a broader range of life experience, because trauma, and especially trauma and addiction, where we use anytime we're suspecting we're going to have a negative feeling or a positive feeling because we can't
Yep.
expand that window. So that's wonderful work. I just want to say, as someone who's done it, it's really hard. So
Yeah.
if you can keep it small and kind of the guardrails, like maybe do that and give yourself some time to shore up and then go do that deeper work. And if you can't, go do that other day. I had that patient go in
Yeah.
trauma therapy that the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about expanding that window of tolerance, thinking about it, recovery work in general, that's what it is. Because we talk about this in Sweet Sobriety too. Go build the life you no longer want to escape from. How do you do that? What components go into that? And if we're putting our time and energy there, in essence, we are able to heal some of that stuff without ever having to go into what is my deepest, darkest fear?
Yeah.
What is the thing that's holding me? You know, like, you don't necessarily have to go there unless you're a weirdo like me. And I like tend to enjoy that stuff from time to time, but certainly like
That's your type 2 fun?
That's my type 2 fun. Exactly.
No,
That's my
I
type
love that.
2.
Listen, and I'm like starting a new like retreat thing that's like do the deeper work. I mean, there's people who really want to go
Yeah.
do the deeper work,
Yeah.
and I want to create like a safe space,
Mhm.
but be careful about it. Be really
Yeah.
thoughtful, you know, and thinking about like, why am I doing this? Because like there's no healed. That's it. Or unless you
Right.
decide you are, and then that's great too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
really, it does hurt while it's healing.
Oh God, ain't that the truth? Well,
So,
I don't think there's anything more to say after that, Clarissa.
so if you want to ask us questions, if you want to give us some feedback, if you have thoughts, we want to hear from you. So make sure to email us at asktheshrinks@foodshrinks.com.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Food Shrinks. Quick reminder, this podcast isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for guidance suited to your needs. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach others on the recovery journey. Take care and remember, freedom with food is possible. See you next time.